Did Kyrie really just request a trade from the Cavaliers? Where should he go? Who should the Cavs get in return? The only question left is, say it with me, you win. Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown Podcast / Emergency Periscope. I'm joined by Dave Dufour. We need an emergency sound effect to throw in here, but why are we here, Dave? Tell me, why am I here, and why is my tab not muted?
You forget every time. So Kyrie is asked for a trade, apparently, and his agent is not denying it. Brian Windhorst, first with the report, confirmed by David Aldridge and multiple other sources. Apparently he wants to go be the top dog somewhere else, but one of the teams on his list is the San Antonio Spurs. So I'm not sure does Kyrie not watch basketball?
Right.
I'm not sure.
I have a hard time picturing that. I mean, I already had a hard time picturing CP3 on the Spurs. Now, Kyrie, though, if you want to get down to it, playing the Tony Parker role, remember, Tony Parker never averaged a ton of assists. Now, part of that could very well be the actual Spurs offense. I'm kind of convinced that there's something about that position that simply doesn't yield a lot of assists. We saw it in Atlanta with Teague running the same system, and we see it in the Spurs. So either way, you know, Parker was a shoot-first point guard. I mean, there are some similarities there, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that he could work in that role, and especially since Pop has kind of gone a little bit more ISO heavy in recent seasons to kind of take advantage of the inefficiencies. I know, but it's the truth. And so the inefficiencies in NBA defense right now, it's all about ISO and mid-range. That's where you can really find those open shots. And I mean, Kyrie he's good at it. I don't know. Like, are you willing to give up DeJounte Murray for him? I don't know. I think I'd rather.
Well, I'm sorry. Let's talk about that because, well, you know what? I almost feel like we should walk this back and discuss like the origin of this and how it all came out with Windhorst reporting this and what that means. What does that mean about Cleveland, a team that's been to 3 straight finals, won one of them? It has a shot at winning the Eastern Conference for the next 3 years, easy. And here's a guy who's a starter on a team, averaged his all-time greatest numbers he's had in his whole career last year, and he wants out. And he had a weird comment before about, you know, a peculiar situation a week before, which must have been all related. What kind of insanity must exist in Cleveland that would bring about this?
You know, there's a thing where he says that he wants to be the top dog. At least that's the report. I can't imagine playing with a guy like LeBron James and not enjoying it. And there's this weird, like, Kobe thing with Kyrie, which, you know, I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense in the modern NBA to be that kind of guy. Those guys just aren't successful, the solo guys. You know, we haven't really seen fully formed Kyrie as the best player on his own team. But what's like the peak of that team? I mean, how many games are they going to win? 40? Are they going to make the playoffs? If Kyrie Irving is your best player, can you make the playoffs with him? You're definitely not winning a finals. And LeBron James has been the ultimate teammate for his entire career. He always makes the right pass, always makes the right play, brings out the best in his teammates. And so, like I said to you before, it says more about Kyrie that he wants out than it does about playing with LeBron. I mean, LeBron's got this long track record of success and teammates that are willing to take less money to play and stay with him. And I don't know. It's a bad look for Kyrie. It's sort of like LaMarcus Aldridge wanting out of San Antonio. It says more about the player than it does about the situation.
Right. Well, it's also fascinating because maybe it's not about on the court necessarily, right? Now, because again, LeBron, we've always marveled at his ability to make the right play and pass, but he controls everything. The whole situation in Cleveland revolves around him, and I would argue that he probably coaches a lot more now than maybe people think as far as how much he's controlling with Tyronn Lue. So it's possible that could be part of what's kind of driving Kyrie away, in a way. Although, again, we have him on the record as saying that he wants to be the man. And you're right, we can't argue. We've seen him be the man, well, on a team that was really bad and it didn't really work. And we've also seen him be the man when LeBron's on the bench. And it has not been good. It has not been a good look. Certainly in the finals, it wasn't good, and they definitely struggled a lot. Now, I would argue, though, that when you have an 82-game season that's focused on LeBron James being the man, it's hard for those 5 minutes a game when he's out to suddenly like be able to shift radically and be successful with that. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's 100% true. I mean, look at guys coming off the bench and how well they perform versus guys that play 30, 35 minutes. I mean, there is something to do touching the ball and being consistent. I was actually just watching some film about Kyle Korver in the finals and how he was bad. Well, he wasn't getting a lot of touches. Right. And so when you're kind of playing off the ball, actually it was narrated by Kobe Bryant. So there you go.
I just watched that today too. Did that
just
go. Come out?
Yeah, it was just all over Twitter earlier. And and he made some great points about these guys that spot up around the primary ball handler like that, and then when they catch, they've got to be ready to shoot, and that's it. And so it's tough to kind of get your rhythm that way, and I think it's tough to play. It can be tough to play that way.
Right, and it's almost like Kobe was listening to some coach on some video 2 or 3 years ago.
He didn't bring up the defense though.
But I'm telling you, I've been saying that since the Miami Heat finals, when like guys like Shane Battier went into deep slumps because they were not getting touches and the ball slowed down so much, and it's a control thing. And I get it. When you want to be that great of a player, you want to feel like you have some sort of control, and LeBron just simply trumps everybody else. Ooh, there's a word. As far as having control over the team, and it could grate on somebody. Because here's the thing. Like this is as well as this is the best numbers that Kyrie is going to ever put up. All right, he's not going to do better than 25.5 or whatever he did, and 7 and shooting 40% from 3. Right?
I can't imagine. I mean, your job is just going to get tougher if you're not playing with LeBron James. That's just the reality of the situation. And to me, I wonder behind the scenes if this is more about Kyrie not wanting to be stuck with this team when it's bad. Like if LeBron leaves next summer, this is not a good roster. This roster is only good because of LeBron James. I mean, it's built completely around LeBron and all of his strengths. Kyrie is a perfect number 2 to LeBron in that sort of system, but it doesn't work without LeBron. I mean, Kyrie is not going to have the success. They probably, I don't know, are they maybe like an 8th seed, 7th seed if no LeBron?
So because here's the argument then would be if you take Steph off of the Warriors, they're still a title contender. Is that the idea here? Or you take KD off the Warriors and they're a title contender, but you take LeBron off, right? That's sort of the idea, just to give you some comparison.
Right. LeBron is the most single valuable player to his team in the entire league, and part of that is roster. It's roster construction, style of play, and being LeBron freaking James, right? Like he is the most valuable guy in the league to his team. We're going to take the one season thing aside. We're going to look at the way that team is built completely around him and his strengths and how good he is. Exactly. Someone in the chat just said LeBron is the system, and that is 100% accurate on that team. But if Kyrie thinks LeBron is leaving next summer, which, the speculation is obviously out there, would you want to be stuck in Cleveland for the next 3 years? Because that's how much time is left on Kyrie's contract. So that's 2 years post LeBron. Would you want to be stuck with that roster? No, I don't think so. And so it's either I would say it's a little bit of both if that's the case. If Kyrie feels like LeBron's going to leave, I bet that's weighing on this. But the stuff where he's saying that he wants to kind of be the guy instead of LeBron, like LeBron's comments, are not publicly, but apparently he's disappointed and blindsided by it. Again, LeBron James is the ultimate team player. And like you can fault him for a lot of stuff, but you can't fault him for the way he is with his teammates, the way he moves the basketball, the way he always makes the right play. So you can't fault him for those things, and it's just weird for a guy to not want to play with him. I really I was caught off guard by this. Like it's not something I ever would have expected, to hear this today.
Yeah, it's funny. When I saw the peculiar situation quote, or whatever that was a few days ago, I did have a raising eyebrow without question. I'm always kind of raising an eyebrow about LeBron and in that context because he does. It's just like I said. It's a different weird connotation for coaches. For sure, for a coach, it's a different ball game. You're not like coaching like you would normally coach a team when you have LeBron on your team. And then I suppose it does leaks out to the players as well. But it is weird because obviously the winning aspect of this and the ability to do stuff is really important. Now, what's interesting here is that we saw James Harden go through one of the single greatest offensive outputs of all time and go to Daryl Morey and say, I don't want to do that again. Like, that's just too much work, right? Like, so he wants out of the situation. Well, Kyrie is now in a situation where this is as great as it's going to get for him in terms of winning, in terms of stats, I would imagine, and he wants out. It's kind of fascinating because it also means he's going to sacrifice his Supermax deal. And we keep seeing players willing to do this now, right? Isn't that a little bit interesting to you?
Well, we've seen a little bit of both, right? We've seen teams not want to pay that Supermax, and we've seen players want to get out. Although I don't think Kyrie is – I don't think he's going to be eligible. I mean, he's not going to make any All-NBA teams, I don't think.
Is that what it ends up being? That's the last thing?
Yeah, he has to make
multiple All-Stars.
Yeah, he has to make 2 All-NBA teams out of the previous 3 years leading up to the contract extension. So, yeah, I don't think he's going to be eligible for that. But that aside, I mean, this is a big deal. Like, I mean, the teams that he's thrown out there were the Knicks, which is strange, but he could definitely go there and be the guy. Okay. The Spurs, also strange because, if you want to be the guy, you're going to go play next to, instead of the best player in the league, you're going to go play next to the third or fourth best player in the league in Kawhi Leonard, and you're not going to be the guy on the Spurs because that's just not how they work. And let's see, Minnesota, where he also wouldn't be the guy. He'd be second banana to Jimmy Butler, maybe third if you put Karl Anthony Towns ahead of him. And what was the other one? There was one more. Phoenix. Oh, Miami. No, Miami. No, now Phoenix makes a lot of sense to me, and a lot of people on Twitter actually have thrown that out there because you've got the Eric Bledsoe, LeBron James relationship with Clutch Sports. Not to mention that, you basically get to swap position for position. If you've got Bledsoe for Kyrie, you'll have some other pieces moving there as well. I was on the trade machine immediately trying to figure out how do we get Carmelo and Bledsoe to Cleveland, and it gets messy. You probably have to add a fourth team, and there's all kinds of stuff. So, but I think that the Phoenix stuff makes a lot of sense. But, if you're the Cavs, you have all the leverage over Kyrie, but now Kyrie has kind of ruined some of your trade leverage a little bit by saying he wants out. So, I mean, you still have him under contract for 3 years. The guy's going to show up. He's going to play. So you could just, do what the Lakers did with Kobe and not trade him and just hope that, things work out. Yeah, that's not the worst option. This doesn't mean he's going to get traded. This is just the beginning of the negotiations. Yes,
but then again, we're also in this weird situation where the Cavaliers do not have a GM. They don't have anybody to make these deals. It's insane. In fact, they went from, they're never going to beat the Warriors the way they're constructed now. Every team in the league has been trying to improve, and they're doing a lot of deals, and yet the Cavaliers are stuck on the outside, not making any of these things, getting blindsided by the Paul George thing, and they don't have a GM. So it's like, this is a mess. I wonder if not having a GM played part of what this is going on, how Kyrie might have seen that. Because remember, if he's willing to go to the Spurs, he knows he's not going to get his numbers in the Spurs, right? So that tells you something even a little bit deeper about what he wants and what's not happening in Cleveland.
Yeah, or again, it's a case of seeing the writing on the wall and wanting to be in a good situation to win. And so we won't know until he actually comes out and comments on it, which he won't comment on the trade request. His agent has not commented and actually was asked and just said no comment, which he could have denied. So it means it's true. I mean, not that you can't trust the guys who are reporting this, but it feels like it's pretty true. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a weird situation. I really never would have thought this would happen. And I think if you're a Cavs fan or if you're, with the Cavaliers, and even if you're like LeBron James, you probably wish that this would have come out before the draft, as early as possible, definitely before free agency. So they could have tried to make this move. If you're going to deal him, maybe they could have been in the Chris Paul trade, Oh,
yeah. How about this? Yeah. How much do you think the Rockets would have taken Kyrie? You think they would have taken him over Chris Paul over CP3?
I don't think so. No, I think they would prefer CP3. CP3 is a better player. Now he's older, but at the same time, I think they like their roster construction. They were the third best team in the West last year. They felt like they were a couple pieces away from competing. I think they would rather have CP3, but I think Cleveland would rather have CP3 than whoever they're going to get for Kyrie. And I think that, people were really pissed at Kevin Durant for leaving, right? For leaving OKC and not trying to work out some kind of sign and trade so they could get something or whatever. Well, he was a free agent. So I think Kyrie waiting this long to request a trade, I think that's worse. It's definitely worse. You've really put them in a shitty position.
Well, the only question I have there is, it's like, it's when you're on a long road trip and all of a sudden you have to go to the bathroom and you say, well, why didn't you go before we left? Well, I didn't have to go before we left. So, maybe,
good.
Kyrie it didn't strike him until now, I guess, in theory. I mean, then again, we've seen it. There's been moments. I don't think it was this year, though. I mean, there's that famous picture, right, of LeBron kind of looking down at Kyrie and yelling at him on the that wasn't this year, right, on the bench? I just saw the picture on Twitter
every day,
somewhere.
so it could have been yesterday for all I know.
Right.
I mean,
it sounded like that was going okay, but again, it does speak interesting volumes. We need to look into this in between the lines here. That for whatever we want to say about Kyrie and wanting to leave, where he wants to go in San Antonio, it just is very interesting to me that's not the issue here necessarily about wanting to go and be his own man. Although I guess that is the quote we have. I don't know. It's a strange thing. So what do we get there? You listed a lot of teams and a lot of different possibilities here. Let's look at it from the Cavaliers' perspective. Who replaces Kyrie and gets him good enough to beat the Warriors?
Well, I don't know that you're going to get good enough to beat the Warriors. I mean, unless they could trade him for Steph Curry. And even then, I think that the Warriors team with Kyrie would still beat the Cavs. It would be fun to watch, though. I don't know. I think Bledsoe could make them better just because he brings so much on defense. And he's not – he's a drop-off from Kyrie because Kyrie offensively is a great player and Bledsoe is a good player. I mean, the difference is like – Kyrie's like a 9 or a 10 on offense, and Bledsoe's like a 7. But I think what you gain on defense with Bledsoe is important, and not to mention, he shoots the ball decently, as a spot-up guy. So I don't know. I think that overall you could get a little bit better with Bledsoe. But then again, he's got his own injury concerns, so who knows? Ideally, if you're sending Kyrie out, you're actually getting more pieces coming back. So maybe you get like Bledsoe and like someone just said in the chat, maybe TJ Warren, which gives you another wing scorer, which is not a bad thing to have in this league. It's a wing league. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks. They're not in any rush to make a deal. The rookie extension deadline is still, a ways away. So we might see some stuff happening, and I'll be curious to see how this story develops over the next, few days. It's funny that it dropped on a Friday, like politics. Right. It's going to die down over the weekend.
Well, I think the position I wanted them to upgrade the most, I felt like, with the Cavs was the shooting guard position. I felt like J.R. Smith is just not the guy at a championship level. I know they won one with him, but he is so up and down all over the place. His defense is really is so bad, especially against a team like the Warriors, that to me it felt like, that's the position they would want to upgrade. So it's almost like, like Booker is the guy they would need, right, to upgrade there. But I
don't think Booker's an upgrade on J.R. Smith.
You don't think Booker's an upgrade on J.R. Smith?
No.
I think Booker, you put him with LeBron, and he's all those threes that are open now, and he can just sort of be. I would think he'd be, and he's a little bit better defensively, and he's not better defensively, but he's better like positionally, and he's not doesn't fall asleep.
Yeah, I don't know. I still like J.R. Smith. I think J.R. Smith is still a good player, and I don't think Booker's there yet. I'm not saying Booker won't get there, but
okay. All right. Either way, what?
Yeah, no. I'm with you. I think they needed to upgrade. They need help on the wing for sure, but now they've got this whole new mess, right? Like they've got to figure that out, and I don't know what they're going to do. They already weren't having an amazing offseason, not having a GM, Yeah. If only they had a guy who was pretty good at dealing with player egos and putting out fires and things like that in their front office. If only there was a guy out there that was available, that maybe was in-house, that they could have re-signed to a contract extension to keep him there. And, it feels like a huge mistake to lose David Griffin now, doesn't it?
Right. And he won Executive of the Year one of those years, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, and with the Kevin Love when he got them. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if only. I mean, it was, all in order to save a buck. And we've seen this before, right? I mean, it's all it was, right? Dan Gilbert just didn't want to pay him what he was worth, I think, right?
Yeah.
And then that became that weird Chauncey Billups thing where, like, Billups wanted more money even though he had never had a minute of experience in a front office, which is strange to me. But, that was weird. But then again, maybe Chauncey Billups didn't turn it down because of the money.
Well, and he's tight with Ty Lue, and he's friends with LeBron, so maybe he has some inside information that we don't. I will say this: the ESPN offered him more money to stay, and that was a factor.
Okay.
But also, Dan Gilbert does not value front office guys.
Right.
He never has. I mean, again, we've talked about this. The next GM will be the fifth one they've had in the last 12 seasons or something like that. So.
Yep. And you can argue, look, it didn't matter. They were winning, they did well. So anyway, despite that, but again, I think we all know that it's going to be almost impossible to try and turn any kind of deal out of this without somebody who knows what they're doing. So who do we think? So Bledsoe, I think for sure would be a great fit for them. Might be the best thing they can do, but it might not even be on the table. You're talking about Derrick Rose, who's now suddenly talking about going to Cleveland. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess they had a meeting, and they're gonna have another meeting. And someone just said Derrick Rose broke up another super team. Now, Derrick Rose, could you replace Kyrie with Derrick Rose and have it be okay? I just don't think so. I don't think Derrick Rose shoots the ball well enough. He was like bottom 10 in the league on catch and shoot threes last year or something ridiculous. I'm just pulling this out of thin air. I saw it, and I can't remember if it was bottom 10 or like bottom 20. But he was bad in catch and shoot situations, whereas Kyrie's actually pretty good in catch and shoot.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, if you could get Derrick Rose at the minimum, that's actually a value contract. That's not bad. He's still an okay player. He's just not. I don't think he's a starter.
Right.
And to go from Kyrie to Rose, I think is a huge downgrade. He can't play defense. He pounds the ball a little bit too much. And maybe playing with LeBron, he doesn't do that. But we need to see it.
Can we go to some questions maybe? Are there any questions that we see right now on Periscope we can answer live, everybody who's out there? Although a lot of people are out there watching this. So I'm kind of curious what the thing is. You see anything, Dave, right now? It's out there.
I got one right here.
Grab. Go ahead.
Does this, from George 34 Marks, does this prove that Blatt couldn't run his system with the Cavs? Apparently Kyrie is a Kobe-style point guard.
Yeah. Well, the irony of what I had noticed was as soon as they fired him, they started to actually run more of David Blatt's offense. So, no. That's the thing about LeBron that kind of rubs me wrong, I think, is that I think he ends up calling all the sets and the actions they're running, or a lot of them. So it's almost like it doesn't matter what the coach has anyway, independent of whatever. Only because we'd seen time and again, the best stuff that they have that gets the best shots, they don't run. And there doesn't seem to be an explanation for that other than, in the spur of the moment, he's just calling plays.
Got a lot of people in the chat who are bringing up John Wall and the fact that he hasn't signed his extension. John Wall for Kyrie doesn't work for the Wizards at all.
Kyrie for the Wizards doesn't work?
No. They need John Wall.
Okay. By the way, there's another point guard out there who hasn't signed his extension either. Okay, so
now this Russell Westbrook will be very interesting to go to Cleveland. I don't know if that would work. I mean, I imagine it would work because he's a great player and LeBron is a great player, but I don't know. That would be pretty tricky, but man, that would be funny. Oh gosh, how would you like to be Paul George if Russell Westbrook gets traded for Kyrie Irving?
I don't think Paul George. I mean, he was traded, right? So it wasn't like he had a choice of where he went. But I don't think he would mind. That would be kind of fun in a different way, I suppose, right? No, you don't think that would be as good?
No, he could have a year where he gets to be what Westbrook was last year, and try to average a triple-double. But yeah, no. I mean, if you want to guarantee Paul George is gone by the trade deadline, then root for a Russell Westbrook Kyrie trade. I don't see that happening. From a money standpoint, it would be tricky too.
But you think that Russ would lure Paul George to stay if Russ decided to stay? That would be a lure for him?
No, but I think that they play the season out. if Russ re-signs. I think they play the season out and try to sign Paul George next summer.
Okay.
But this is if Russ re-signs that extension. Man, look, I tweeted this earlier. The NBA offseason is so much more interesting than the NFL regular season. It's not even close. There's so much stuff to like wrap your head around. There's stuff happening every single day. Like the NBA has done such a great job of making it a 12-month league. I mean, people now follow the front office stuff as closely as they follow the games, and in some cases closer. There's a lot of people that just follow the front office and look at stats. They don't watch games. So, yeah.
Well, that's weird, but okay.
It is weird, but there's a lot of people like that.
Yeah, and that makes sense to some degree with sometimes when you interact with some of those guys. So, any other questions we have live that we can grab out here out in the Periscope sphere? I
got a lot of
over
people.
to Twitter.
Got a lot of people asking about specific teams, like would Kyrie to the Nuggets work? Would Kyrie to Milwaukee work? I mean, you could make any of these deals work. You can pull in as many teams as you want, but as far as fit goes, where does Kyrie fit? I mean, if you replaced Isaiah Thomas with Kyrie, I think Boston gets better, but that's not a trade that's going to happen.
Right.
I don't think Boston's going to give up assets for Kyrie, and I don't think that the Cavs are going to trade Kyrie to Boston. They're a direct competitor. So there's a lot of this stuff like Milwaukee. I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't think Milwaukee would want to give up their length and versatility for Kyrie. And remember, Kyrie's got some injury concerns in his history. Like his knees are not great. So, it's going to be interesting. Someone is going to act irrationally about this, and it's either going to be the Cavs or it's going to be the team that trades for Kyrie, and we're going to see it.
Well, speaking of irrational, certainly that can apply to anybody in the Cavaliers organization. Tony Rubino on Twitter just sent a tweet over to me that I saw. There is another solution to solve this notion of Kyrie wanting to be the man.
Trade LeBron?
Yeah. You could trade LeBron.
Well, I think we have to talk about it because if you think you're going to lose LeBron, and you know what? Let's just be real here. All right. I think LeBron's leaving. I think he's leaving. How do you feel, Nick?
I could never have imagined it after the whole thing with the decision that he'd leave again after coming back. But I also never felt like he went back home necessarily. I think he went back to the place where he could control and get the Kevin Love deal ahead of time, which is he knew that was going to happen, and he wouldn't have gone back if the Kevin Love thing wasn't happening. So I don't think it's a notion of like him staying at home in Cleveland, right? So yes, he is clearly a guy who's going to want to get into the best situation he can possibly to get to the finals and win. So and it's clear, I think, for the rest of his career in Cleveland, the way it stays now, that that's not going to happen. So yes, I would say it's certainly a very distinct possibility that he leaves after this year.
It just feels that way. I have no source on it or anything like that. It just feels that way. So if you're Cleveland.
Yeah.
And you're worried you're going to lose him next summer for nothing, right? We just saw OKC and what they went through after losing KD, and we have talked extensively about how they can't afford to lose Russell Westbrook this summer for nothing. I think you have to entertain the idea of moving him, especially if you're going to also – I mean, if your choice is between I can keep Kyrie for the rest of whatever, like the rest of his contract, re-sign him, or try to move LeBron. And I know LeBron has a no-trade clause. That's fine. Like, you work it out with LeBron. I'm sure that there's another team LeBron wouldn't hate to go to, maybe in L.A. or Houston or Miami or, wherever. And remember, D-Wade is going to be working on a buyout with the Bulls. So there's that. I just think that you have to at least explore the possibility. I think that nothing should be off the table right now for the Cavs because you run the risk of next summer not having Kyrie Irving or LeBron James if you just deal Kyrie.
Right. And again, if there was any player that would not fetch anywhere near the value in a trade, it would probably be LeBron would be the top of the pyramid. Even though he's at the end of his career now, it still feels like that's an issue that like you'd never get it back. But then again, it's nothing or something, and they would probably still fetch. They should be able to get a great young player, a good rotational player who's a veteran, and then a pick, right? At least that, and probably another player, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously depending on how the cap stuff works out, but they'll make it work, and
right,
yeah, they would get a good haul.
Yeah, and so it's like, you could get yourself set up for the next 10 years, and have Kyrie be part of that. And hell, Kevin Love, you can maybe package him again and just kind of reboot really quickly, before Kevin Love loses his value, which is certainly a concern as well. So,
whatever value he has left.
Has anything else popped up since we've been on here? Woj has been silent. It looks like Kyrie's been silent. As far as I
we
can
haven't
tell.
seen. There's nothing new yet, so we will reserve the right to have another emergency pod if LeBron James asks for a trade.
Yeah.
Or Tristan Thompson. Do we do an emergency pod if Tristan Thompson asks for a trade?
No.
No. Okay. What about Channing Frye?
So.
I like Channing. So.
Yeah. Channing. James Jones. Although, did James Jones just sign? Is he now a coach or something?
No. Yeah. So he's now in the front office in Phoenix.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so he's going back to where he started. Or
Right.
maybe he didn't start there, but he played there, right?
I think he played there at some point, but he was in Miami for a long time.
Right.
If only we had a way to look this stuff up, but
Anyway, James Jones, a great guy, one of the smarter guys I've ever talked to, especially about shooting. So, glad to see him doing well. We'll have to keep our fingers on the tab, but let's get this podcast out quickly so we can beat everybody out on all of our hot takes of trading LeBron and whatnot.
I don't think that any of these were hot takes at all. There was nothing hot takey.
Right.
Including J.R. Smith being a better player than Devin Booker.
Oh,
right now.
We might have to battle about. I'm just not a fan of JR. I just really don't. From a consistency standpoint, not that maybe Booker is not that consistent either, but
Booker's
I just feel like
he's high volume.
Who is?
Booker is.
Yeah, and I feel like he's, remember what I said about NBA players who look like they're like 16 when they get in the league?
Right.
I can't judge them until they start looking about 19, 20. He's finally getting there. Austin Rivers is almost 21 looking, maybe by now
right.
when he wears a hat. So, so we're getting there with him. So we'll have to find out. This year will be a big make or break year for Booker for sure.
Yeah, and again, this is not me saying that Devin Booker is not going to be, a top 5 shooting guard in the league at some point. I think I'm high on him. I just think that if your goal is to win the title right now, I think J.R. Smith is a better player for you than Devin Booker is.
Oh,
that's it.
I don't know.
So it's not a hot take at all.
Okay, I don't agree with that either. I feel like J.R. was one of the big culprits for why the Cavs were doomed. I mean, there's a lot of things going on, but. And by the way, it's specifically for the Warriors. Like if they played on other teams, maybe J.R. Smith doesn't have those issues as much. But this is where we are. We have the Warriors to deal with on the other side. So, Dave, awesome emergency podcast. We should do this more often because certainly the amount of people here in the live chat was overwhelmingly large.
Yeah, we had a lot of people in here today. So
yeah.
I guess everybody who's watching, if you're listening to the audio, join us Sunday night for the live show again for the weekly podcast. And
you know what? Maybe this is time to finally launch our daily radio show.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, let's do that. For an hour a day, right around this time sounds perfect for me. So, all right, we'll figure that out. Thanks for coming on, Dave. Thank you all for listening and watching and giving us your questions. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, Dave?
Yes, I am.